What if I told you that the reason you're not where you want to be in life is probably not what you think it is? We always blame the external stuff, right? I wasn't born rich. I didn't go to the right school. My boss hates me. The economy sucks. And look, some of that stuff is real, don't get me wrong. But what if I told you that you have way more control over your life than you realize? Stick around because I'm going to share a story that literally changed everything for me, and I think it might do the same for you. Let me paint you a picture of where I was about a year ago. I was working at this job, and oh my god, I was miserable. Talking about the kind of miserable where your alarm goes off in the morning and you just want to throw your phone across the room and hide under the covers forever. Every single day felt like torture. And I had this one colleague. I'm not going to get into the details about the drama because honestly, we'll be here all day. But basically, they made my life really difficult. They were constantly reporting things to my boss, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells all the time. You know that feeling when you're trying your absolute best at something, but it just feels like nobody sees or even nobody cares. That was me every single day. I would put in all this effort, I'll try to be helpful, and it was like nothing. Like I was invisible or something. And I remember going home most days either crying or just completely drained. The worst part is that I felt trapped because bills are not going to pay themselves, and I needed that job, even though it was slowly killing my soul. So for months, I was living in this victim mindset, and I didn't even realize it at the time, but that's exactly what it was. I was constantly thinking, why is this happening to me? Oh God, why is everyone against me? Why is this place so toxic? And here's the thing, some of that was probably true, but at that point, that workplace was pretty toxic. That colleague was making things difficult, but I was just so focused on all the things I couldn't control that I completely forgot about the things that I could control. And I noticed this was becoming a pattern as well. I complain about every single job I'm in. I would go home, I'll vent to my friends and family, and they'll be like, oh, you should just quit, or oh, just report them or something. But it just felt like I had no options and I was stuck. So I was basically giving everyone else the remote control to my emotions. And if that colleague was having a bad day, I would be having a bad day. If my boss was annoyed, I would be anxious all day. I was just like a ping pong ball, just bouncing off people's energy, whatever energy they throw at me. And the crazy part about all this is that I thought this was normal. I thought this was just how work was supposed to be. Everyone hates going into work on Mondays. It's meant to be miserable and draining and something you just have to endure. But at some point, I didn't want that anymore, and I wanted a change. So during this whole time, I decided to start reading some books here. I was reading a lot of self-development books because I was desperately trying to figure out how to feel less miserable. I started off reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. And there's this part in the book about how small changes compound over time. And I was like, okay, but how does that help me with, someone else's feelings? And then I read another book, Grit by Angela Duckworth, and she talks about how success is more about persistence and passion rather than talent or circumstances. And I'm reading and I'm thinking, okay, great. I'm already persistent because I'm clearly, obviously, persistently showing up to work every single day, even though I hate it. So I read another book called Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. And honestly, at first I thought it was just more of, these motivational books, think positive thoughts, unicorns will appear. So I thought it was that type of stuff, but there was this one concept that stuck with me. The idea that we create our reality based on how we perceive things. At first I was like, BS. My reality is that I have a terrible job and I work with terrible people. But the more I thought about it, the more I started wondering, what if there was something to all of this? So at some point when I was absolutely sick of being miserable, I woke up one morning and I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm completely done. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I can't keep living like this. Something has to change. And that's when it hit me. The only thing I had complete control over was me. I couldn't control my colleague. I couldn't control my boss. I couldn't control the company culture. But what I could control was how I showed up. So I made this decision that day. I'm going to stop being sad. I'm going to stop being a victim. I'm going to take charge of my life, and I don't care what anyone else is doing. It sounds so simple when I say it like that, but it was actually terrifying because when you stop blaming other people for how you feel, that means you have to take responsibility for your own happiness. And that's scary as hell. So I decided to run it like a little experiment. I was going to show up to work like I was the happiest, most confident person in the building. I was not going to be fake happy. I was genuinely going to be happy. I'm not going to be walking around like a Disney character or anything, singing, but I wanted to radiate positive energy, and I wanted to stop assuming that my colleagues had it out for me. Instead of thinking, oh my God, what are they going to complain about today? I started wondering, how can I make today go smoothly for everyone? And here's the weird part. Once I started treating everyone, including the difficult colleagues, like we were already cool, like we were already on the same team, things started to change. I mean, I would say good morning and I would actually mean it. I would ask how their weekend was and actually listen to them answer. And even if they made passive aggressive comments, instead of me getting defensive, I'll just respond with kindness. So I know this sounds cheesy, but I started operating from this place of assuming that people liked me and wanted to work with me, even when their behavior suggested otherwise. And once I made this shift in my head, everything started changing. And I mean everything. First of all, my mood improved dramatically. I wasn't dreading going to work anymore. I stopped taking the bus and started walking to work because I actually wanted to enjoy the journey. Like, I was walking 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening back home just because I was in such a good mood. I started looking forward to most days instead of just trying to survive. I would wake up really early around 6 or 7 a.m. and start walking so I can get to work before 9 a.m. And the part that really blew my mind was other people started responding differently to me too. That difficult colleague, they weren't reporting me to the boss anymore. I was actually being included in conversations. People were asking for my opinions. And I don't think these people fundamentally changed overnight, like they became good people. What I think happened is that I stopped radiating this victim energy and I started radiating confidence and positivity instead. And the thing is, people respond to energy, whether they realize it or not, whether you realize it or not. When you're in a bad mood, you tend to notice all the negative things around you. But when you're in a good mood, you notice more positive things. It's the same thing that happens with how we interact with people. After this whole experience, I went back to those books with fresh eyes and suddenly everything made sense. Atomic Habits talks about how small changes compound. Because I changed how I was showing up every day, it led to massive results over time, even in areas of my life that I didn't know, like my fitness improved. Grit isn't just about pushing through hard times. It's also about being passionate and persistent about who you want to become, not just, your goals. I got gritty about being happy, if that makes sense. And also the book about paradigm shifts. It turns out that when I changed how I viewed myself and my situation, my actual experience changed too. There's also all this research about self-fulfilling prophecies. So basically, if you expect people to treat you badly, you behave in ways that make that more likely to happen. You're going to act in a way that would upset them. So how do you actually implement this for yourself? When I was in the thick of this thing, people were giving me advice like, oh, just be positive. And I wanted to scream like, look, I've had a long day. Don't just tell me just be positive. I'm here to vent. So basically, here's how it worked for me. Instead of walking into the office thinking, I'm not even prepared for today, what's going to go wrong today as well? Instead of avoiding people and saying, oh, you know what, I'm not going to talk to my boss today, I don't even want the drama this morning, started engaging with all these people like normal people. I wasn't trying to be fake. I was just being normal. When someone said something that could be taken as negative, I started choosing to interpret it in the best way possible. If my boss said, can you redo this report? Instead of thinking, oh my God, they hate my work, they're out to get me, I think, okay, they want to help me make the report better. So I started celebrating small wins. Like if I had a good interaction with someone, I would actually acknowledge it. And instead of focusing on what went wrong, I would focus on what went right. And here's a big one. I stopped complaining about work to my friends and family. I used to be a complainer. I complained about literally everything. And I felt like I was pushing away people because anytime you call me, it's always, oh, this is gone wrong. Oh, that has gone wrong. And I realized I was reinforcing this victim narrative in my own head. And I genuinely wanted this to stop. The best thing I got out of this whole experience is that I started complaining less. And by the time I eventually left that job, and I did leave, but I left on my own terms, I was actually kind of sad to go. Not because I loved the job or I loved the people, but because I had learned to love who I was when I was there. My first day on the job, I was so scared. My second day, my third week, in fact, my first week, I was so scared they were going to fire me. And I felt like that for most of the time at that place. But by the day I was leaving, I was the one telling them, oh, you know what? I'm ready to go. Like, it's fine. You know, they were also worried about me, like, oh, are you sure? Do you have anything else lined up? I said, no, I have nothing lined up, but I'm going to be fine. That's how confident I was when I was leaving. And I realized that I had way more power than I thought. Not the power to control other people or circumstances, but the power to control my own experience. And I'm not saying this is easy. There were definitely days when I felt like I wanted to go back to my victim mindset because honestly, sometimes it's just easier to blame other people rather than take responsibility for your own happiness. But once you realize how much control you actually have, you can't unknow it. You start applying it to everything from your relationships to your family stuff, to work, to your life, even just how you feel about yourself. So if you're in a situation right now where you feel stuck or powerless, I want you to ask yourself, what's one small way that I can show up differently? What's the one thing I can control, even if I can't control anything else? Because here's what I know for sure. You are in way more control than you think. You might not be able to control what happens to you, but you can absolutely control what happens in you. And that changes everything. So let me know in the comments, guys, if you've ever had an experience like this, or if you're going to try this approach in your own life. I love hearing your stories, and who knows, maybe your comments will help someone else who's going through the same thing. Okay, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.